and good afternoon.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My name is Hind Makki, and for the first time in over 15 years in my advocacy on behalf of American Muslims, I'm at the podium speaking to you on behalf of my specific ethnic community and the people from the 6 other banned countries. And as a Sudanese American, I have this to say. This quote by a Queensland, Australia Aboriginal leader, Lila Watson. "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let us work together." In this first week of Black History Month, I'm acutely aware of the millions of souls who died on the way here to the United States, kidnapped and enslaved, a large percentage of whom were people who were Muslim. I'm acutely aware of the men and women and children who spent their entire lives in bondage building this country. And they were from the other side of my continent. Today, a continent from which 3 countries, refugees, immigrants, and people are now banned from coming here. So I'd like to offer my gratitude to our elected officials, to our civic leaders, to our religious leaders, our interfaith allies, to the civil rights organizations, and to regular citizens, my neighbors, modeling what active citizenship looks like, modeling what democracy looks like, modeling what America looks like. Right now, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Right now, my friend Janan, who is an Indian immigrant, born in Qatar and immigrated to the United States when she was 16 years old, is actually at the Loop Synagogue offering a letter that she wrote on behalf of herself as a Muslim mother, but also on behalf of the Chicago Muslim community, standing in solidarity because our liberation is bound up in the liberation of our Jewish sisters and brothers. I want to share some words of what the Sudanese community, specifically here in Chicago, has been dealing with over the last 10 weeks. This is not a new story. The Sudanese community in Chicago is roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people. We're very small. It's a very tiny minority of the city. But we're a community that literally makes the city run as taxi drivers, as doctors, as engineers, as teachers, like my mother is. For 20 years, the Sudanese diaspora across the world has suffered under very heavy international sanctions. And because of that, many people cannot find their living in Sudan, and they leave their countries, and many of them have found their way right here. If you ever have a Sudanese taxi driver pick you up outside of Union Station, talk to him, and you might hear that this is a man who was perhaps a law professor at the University of Khartoum. This is a man who has 3 children, who he is proud of sending to Chicago's finest colleges. That this is a man who pays taxes and votes and cares about his family back home and funds their lives. Sudanese Americans also have to deal with this intersection of not only Islamophobia, but also anti-Black animus. So while Sudanese and Somali brothers and sisters are currently dealing with the executive order abroad and are banned from bringing their families here, they themselves here in Chicago and in the country have to deal with this anti-Black animus where their own bodies are criminalized by our culture. I think it's really important to highlight the fact that 2 out of these 7 countries are Black countries, that Black people are affected by the ban, that Black people are also Muslim, and Muslims are also Black people.
Yes.
So finally, I want to mention that for the last 10 days, what I've been doing as an American-born U.S. citizen, I have been privileged to leverage my own solid standing as a citizen and speak on behalf of fellow Sudanese who are green card holders or visitor or here on student and visitor visas. And I have been able to connect them with lawyers through the ACLU or through CARE, and I've also been able to share their stories. However, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of confusion because the laws are, keep changing, and people, as I mentioned, this is a small community that does not have a lot of leverage on its own. And I want to just introduce you to one family that I met on Friday. I was having a Know Your Rights session at the Sudanese Resource Center on the north side, and I met a man and his two sons, and the man told me that he and his wife are naturalized U.S. citizens. Their two older children were born and raised in the United States. Their last child happened to have been, by accident, born in Sudan because his mother went to Sudan to be with an ill family member. This child has a green card. This child is about this high. He has beautiful big brown eyes and curly, gorgeous hair, and he was so scared when his father was asking me, do I continue to apply for citizenship for my son? This boy looked at me and I could read in his big brown eyes that not only does he know that he's seen as a threat as a Muslim, he also realizes, I think, that he's going to be seen as a threat as a young black man. And I want that little boy to know that his liberation is bound up in the liberation of the young Jewish people at the Loop Synagogue downtown. And his liberation is bound up in the liberation of our Boy Scouts that we saw an hour ago. That his liberation is bound up in the liberation of young black and Latino men locked in the school-to-prison pipeline.
Yes.
And in the liberation of the dreamers and the undocumented who also find their liberation in his. And his liberation is bound up in the liberation of all of us who say, E pluribus unum. No ban, no law,